Hey all, today we're going to continue talking about making data displays using our frequency distributions that we've been creating the last few classes. And we are going to talk today about creating two types of data displays that are very similar called frequency polygons and ogives. And I will admit that the pronunciation of this word, I'm not 100% sure on. I say ogive. I think some people say ogive. Star to the person who finds us the absolute correct pronunciation of this. But here we have the temperature data that we had last time. So hopefully you have the Excel files that you used for the last lesson. We're going to use this same data, and we are, instead of creating a histogram, and I do see that I did not change this type to make a frequency polygon or ogive, but we're going to do that today using the same data. So here I have the same raw data for my temperature. I have the classes, our boundaries, and our frequencies that we have from the last couple of lessons. And today we're going to create a couple new categories. So in order to create this frequency polygon that I have here, I need the midpoints of each of my class and then the frequencies that we have already counted. So you find the midpoint by finding the number in the very middle of your class. So in my class of 100 to 104, the middle number is 102, and then 107, 112, 117, so on and so forth. And then we sort of do this midpoint above and below the rest of our data. And what that does is, as you can see in this graph, it sort of anchors the graph to the bottom or our horizontal axis. It brings it all the way down on both sides to kind of start and finish this graph off kind of nicely. So we find this midpoint of a class that would be below this class and a midpoint of the class that would be above this class, and the frequency is 0 because we don't have any data points there. And so if we look at this, it's kind of like looking at the histogram. It's just another way to show where our, say, peak frequency is right here, where some of our lower frequencies occur. Just another way to display the distribution here of the highest or record temperatures in our 50 states. And so let me show you how to make this. You should pause and get this data into your Excel file for midpoints and frequency. And then when you do, you should follow along creating this. So I'm going to take and highlight, just like we did last time. This time I'm going to highlight the midpoints and the frequencies. And I'm going to insert. I'm going to do my drop down. And I'm going to choose this first one from the list of line graphs. And you can see this is graphing the midpoints and it's also graphing the frequencies. And so we need to manipulate this so that we can make it look like the one I have. And so down here by the numbers, I'm going to double click. I'm going to go to data. I want my horizontal axis to be my midpoints. That's what these are down here. So I'm going to click add field and choose series 1 because it's our first column that we selected. And then I'm going to go down to line values and I'm going to delete series 1. And so my horizontal axis is going to be my midpoints, and the line is actually going to plot the frequencies in my series 2. And so you can see I have the same graph here. I changed the color because I like red better than orange. I can double click on series and I can change that name. I can change the chart title. These are all little things that you can do to format your frequency polygon when you're doing your own. The important thing here is to be able to create it. So again, I highlighted both of these. I'm inserting my line, and then I'm going to change which series is my horizontal and which series tells us what to graph. Oops, I have two of these. This ogive is a combination of our upper boundary like we used last time. And again, I'm going to put an upper boundary of a class that doesn't exist here so that we can start our graphing at 0, because what we're using now is a cumulative frequency. So if we start at 0, it sort of anchors our graph down to the bottom here. And then we just add up the frequencies as we go. So we start with 2, then add that 2 to 8 to get 10, then add 18 to get 28, add 13 to get 41. And our last one should be the total number of data points we had, which was 50. And this type of display just sort of shows you how the frequency increases as the temperature changes. And you can see where there are sharp spikes in change, and then that our maximum here is 134. Well, it's not 134, it's 114. But sort of shows you where we max out. Just another way to display our information. So again, we'll be selecting both of those columns. We're going to be inserting, and we're going to choose the same option, line. And again, it's going to give us 2 lines. We don't want that, so we're going to double click down here by the numbers. Go to data. Our horizontal axis, our category, we're going to tell it to use series 1. That's our upper boundary numbers. And then we wanted to graph the frequencies, which is our series 2. So I'm going to delete out this first option, and you can see it takes us to our same display. Again, you can change the color. If you want to make this a different color, you can just click on the line. Now, of course, it's not going to let me do it. I'm going to right click and format, and then I could go change the color. So if it's important to you to change the color, that's okay. It was important enough for me to change it to red. I like red. You could do all sorts of stuff to make this sort of pop, but the important thing in this lesson is to be able to create these 2 different types of data displays, our frequency polygon and our cumulative frequency ogive. So we're going to do the same thing for our ages of the wealthy. And again, you should pause and you should get this new information into your Excel file, and then I will show you how to create these 2 displays. So I'm going to highlight again for my frequency polygon, which is still showing the frequencies just like the histogram. For each class, it's just showing them at the midpoint of those classes. Again, the midpoint is the number in the middle of the class. So between 27 and 35 is 31, and 36 to 44 is 40, so on and so forth. I found the number that was directly in the middle of the class. And again, I created sort of midpoints of classes that that don't exist, so that we can put those frequencies of 0 to anchor our display down to the horizontal axis, sort of start it off and end it where we began. So I'm going to select both of those, insert, choose the first line. I'm going to double click down where my numbers are, go to the data tab, and I'm going to make my horizontal axis my first series. That's because it's the first column here, my midpoints. And I'm going to delete out this thing that says wealthy people, because I want series 2, my frequencies, to be what we graph. And there we go. We have the same display. For our other one, same process, just with different information. So it's really the same process. We're going to get a different display because instead of the individual frequencies, we have the cumulative frequencies. And instead of the midpoints, we have the upper boundaries. We are going to insert our first line option, double click down by the numbers, choose data. My horizontal axis is series 1. My line values are series 2, so delete out that other one. And there we have our cumulative frequency display. The reason we go with the upper boundaries is so we can say something like, this is the number of data points below this value. So below 44.5 years old, there's only one data point. Below 53.5 years old, there's 5 data points. And of course, we had this same data last time. So again, we have a UDO on the ages of presidents. So hopefully you have this data still from last time. Go ahead and make sure you find the midpoints, link that up with the frequencies, have a 0 on both sides to anchor that thing down to the horizontal axis. Find your cumulative frequencies and relate those to your upper boundaries. If at any point you're working through this and you need some help on which is the next step or how to get started, please do ask. Take your time and good luck.